Hey Summoners, how's it going? My name is Nathaning, and in this video, we're going to be going over the new set of Korean builds for patch 11.17. Like always, we're going to be updating you on the trendiest builds whenever you're trying to climb. Be the first one to find out about them in this video, and hit that sub button, and let's go ahead and jump right into it. Let's start off with some top lane builds. Kayn is first. Yeah, you heard that right. Kayn top is seen a lot more play than before. The time has finally come, and Kayn is finding his wins in solo lanes. Great for Kayn, but it again brings up the issue of flex picks. Will he receive more nerfs as a result of this increased top lane play rate? Probably, but you still have this patch to abuse it. Naturally, Kayn is very mobile, so you can just run Ignite on him. This saves you the extra cost of building Executioner's Calling and providing some extra damage on top of that. With the extra combat power, it's much harder to take a fight against Kayn as a result of his high damage and mobility. Kayn also has great wave clear, allowing him to manage the wave effectively and also punishing enemies hard for recalling early. For runes, run Conqueror, Presence of Mind, Legend Tenacity, Last Stand, Second Wind, Revitalize, Double Adaptive Force, and your choice of a defensive stat. For items, start off with Tear of Goddess. From there, build Divine Sunderer, Defensive Boots, Man Immune, Syrinx Gauge, Death's Dance, and a Spirit Visage. You still gain plenty of damage from this build, and the combination of Death's Dance, Spirit Visage, and Conqueror contribute heavily to your healing. Picks like this are a great way to mix up your opponents, as they probably won't have that much matchup experience against them, or they probably will think that you're in the jungle. If you want help learning to play as or against off-meta picks like Kayn top, contact a coach over at ProGuides.com. We have plenty of specialists and also courses by pros like Doublelift and Core JJ. Next is a build for Dr. Mundo. Although he's a tank himself, this build is an effective one against others, making him a tanky tank-slaying machine. Top 10 betrayals of all time right there. The combination of Grasp with Undying and Divine Sunderer help Mundo accomplish this. He ends up with a ridiculous amount of percentage health damage with this build. We suggest running Ghost as well. It has a shorter cooldown, and Mundo's passive can often provide the safety that you need to get away without flash. Instead, you can effectively chase enemies with the long duration of the Summoner's Ghost speed boost. For runes, run Grasp with Undying, Demolish, Second Wind, Revitalize, Magical Footwear, Approach Velocity, Attack Speed, Armor, and your choice of a final defensive rune. His Q is a short cooldown slow that will trigger the rune and ensure that you stay in range of your target. For his items, build Divine Sunderer, Defensive Boots, Thornmail, Spirit Visage, Warmog's Armor, and a Gargoyle Stoneplate. We've put up the builds on the screen one more time for you to take a look at. With that covered, we have the jungle next. Kicking it off, we have Jarvan. Jarvan popped off ridiculously hard after his last buff. His win rate shot up to the higher end of 51% and his pick rate up to 10%. Now that he's meta and players have experimented a little bit more, a new build is beginning to surface. First, you run Ignite instead of Flash. Extra damage at the cost of some safety is ultimately a sacrifice that you should consider making. You're gonna build Stridebreaker to compensate for the lack of flash. Unfortunately, this means that if you're ever out of position, you're only gonna have your E and Q to get out, which honestly isn't too bad since the combo takes you pretty far. With Stridebreaker, it's nearly impossible for enemies to run away from Jarvan even if they flash away. His ultimate is a second gap closer that he can use to get in and continue smacking his opponents. Ideally though, you land the initial EQ combo. After the knock-up and follow-up attack, you activate Stridebreaker, slowing your target and continue to dish out more damage. Either they stand and fight, meaning that you'll eventually have your Q to come back up, or they'll just run away and you can use your ultimate to continue chasing them. For runes, run Conqueror, Triumph, Legend Tenacity, Coup de Grace, Magical Footwear, Cosmic Insight, Attack Speed, Adaptive Force, and Armor. For his items, build Stridebreaker, Defensive Boots, Syrinx Gauge, Titanic Hydra, Edge of Night, and Guardian Angel. Again, this build is aggressive but also rewarding since a single kill is all you need in solo queue to start going off. Next is a build for Viego. In spite of some nerfs, or a lot of nerfs, he's still going to be strong, and there's a new defensive build that's gaining popularity. According to Faker, all Viego needs to win games is survive and possess his opponents. By focusing more on defense, you have more opportunities to look for those sort of openings. For runes, run Conqueror, Triumph, Legend Alacrity, Last Stand, Magical Footwear, Cosmic Insight, Attack Speed, Adaptive Force, and your choice of a defensive rune. For his items, build Gore Drinker, Defensive Boots, Blade of the Rune King, Syrinx Gauge, Death's Dance, and Wit's End. While Viego has lost some of his healing this patch, building Gore Drinker provides some crucial bonus healing to help him out. Divine Sunderer was also nerfed, so it's definitely worth at least trying out a new mythic item. You know, for science. Finally, we have a top and jungle combo that we want to talk about. This one involves Kled and Elise. It's an oppressive top jungle duo that can collectively mitigate several turret shots. Skarl can eat one while Kled dismounts, and while that's happening, Elise's repel can easily allow her to get out and juggle turret aggro. A coordinated duo can abuse this to turret dive in nearly any situation and isn't limited only to the top lane. They can also choose to roam to another lane together, but of course, you want to bully the enemy top laner first. Both of these champions deal serious damage early on, and as early as level 3, the enemy top laner will have to either give up a few minion waves to dodge the dive, or challenge a nearly unwinnable 1v2 scenario. Kled can run Ignite. He wants to snowball hard, and his E does provide some decent mobility. For runes, run Conqueror, Triumph, Legend Alacrity, Last Stand, Bone Plating, Unflinching, Attack Speed, Adaptive Force, and your choice of a defensive rune. His items are Gore Drinker, Defensive Boots, Syrinx Gauge, Death's Dance, Guardian Angel, and Gargoyle Stoneplate. Elise runs Press the Attack, Triumph, Alacrity, Coup de Grace, Cheap Shot, Ravenous Hunter, Attack Speed, Adaptive Force, and Armor. For items, build Night Harvester, Sorcerer's Shoes, Zanya's Hourglass, Void Staff, Morellonomicon, and Rabadon's Death Cap. Press the Attack will also increase Kled's damage output after it activates. On the topic of duos, I want to hear your thoughts. Which two roles do you think are the strongest for duo queue? I personally still think it's mid and jungle because of how much impact that you have across the entire map, unless your duo partner kind of sucks, or you do. Nevertheless, there are plenty of strong duos and I want to hear your opinions. Let me know your answers in the comments down below. That covers the jungle builds, and let's take a look at them one more time on the screen. We've thrown up those builds for you so you can save them as we move on to the mid lane next. So, with Divine Sunderer nerfed, champions might want to look for a new mythic item to build. Wukong is looking pretty scary because he's played as an assassin now. In the mid lane, we see the Monkey King going around and one-shotting opponents left and right. Before his rework, this is what we typically saw out of Wukong, but it's back now that Divine Sunderer is a little bit weaker. For runes, run Electrocute, Sudden Impact, Eyeball Collection, Ultimate Hunter, Triumph, Coup de Grace, Taste of Blood, Attack Speed, Adaptive Force, and your choice of a defensive rune. For his items, build Eclipse, Ionian Boots of Lucidity, Yumu's Ghostblade, Serpent's Fang, Edge of Night, and either Chempunk Chainsword or Guardian Angel. Wukong's kit makes him a decent assassin. His E allows him to dash towards his enemies, and his Q provides a sizable amount of damage as well. W can either be used prior to engage for the stealth, or instead used afterwards to get out. After level 6, Wukong also brings a lot of crowd control. Aside from the burst damage, he's also able to momentarily knock up the enemies, making it much more difficult for them to retaliate, while also providing his teammates an opportunity to follow up. Next up is mid lane Graves. We've mentioned Graves mid in some of our videos, and he's still looking strong in spite of the nerfs. Graves can still effectively push in spite of the increased mana cost on his Q, and he scales incredibly well. It's absolutely disgusting seeing his late game damage output, as he's able to one-shot almost anybody and make a quick getaway right afterwards. For runes, run Electrocute, Sudden Impact, Eyeball Collection, Ravenous Hunter, Absolute Focus, Gathering Storm, Attack Speed, Adaptive Force, and your choice of a defensive rune. For items, build Eclipse, Berserker's Grief, the Collector, Serpent's Fang, Lord Dominic's Regards, and an Infinity Edge. That wraps up the mid lane, so take a look one more time on the screen because we've got those builds up for you one last time. Finally, let's wrap it up with the bottom lane. We have one build for each bot lane and support, so let's start off with one for Caitlyn. There's a good chance that you're familiar with this one, but it's worth reiterating since the typical marksman build of crit damage and attack speed remains the most popular. Lethality Caitlyn is surprisingly strong and takes a different approach to the champion. Rather than focusing on safe and consistent damage output, your goal as Lethality Caitlyn is to either poke or just go for one-shots with her trap. The extra burst damage that she gains from Lethality items can push her damage high enough to kill enemies from full health with the right setup. For runes, run Dark Harvest, Taste of Blood, Eyeball Collection, Ravenous Hunter, Absolute Focus, Gathering Storm, Double Adaptive Force, and your choice of a defensive rune. No attack speed here, you're playing Lethality Caitlyn, so you want all the AD that you can get. Running Gathering Storm also ensures that you don't fall too behind the enemy marksman later on into the game. In fact, with all that bonus AD and lethality, you remain very relevant as you deal an insane amount of damage anytime anybody steps on a trap. For your items, build Eclipse, Berserker's Grief, the Collector, Lord Dominic's Regards, Serpent's Fang, and Edge of Night. If the enemy team doesn't have any shields, go for Yumu's Ghostblade instead of Serpent's Fang. Finally, we have support Shen. He remains a powerful top laner as a result of the immense utility that he provides. His ultimate shield scales with his bonus health, and as a result, he does a very good job of keeping his allies safe during the late game. Support Shen is just as relevant as ever as a result of the immense utility that he provides. For runes, run Halo Blades, Cheap Shot, Zombie Ward, Ultimate Hunter, Fond of Life, Second Wind, Ability Haste, Armor, and one more defensive rune of your choice. For his items, build Ionian Boots of Lucidity, Frostfire Gauntlet, Anathema's Chains, Thornmail, and Gargoyle Stoneplate. Most of the time, you won't be able to finish your 6th item since you're playing support, but you can obviously go for items like Wardstone or another defensive one like Randuin's Omen. That wraps up the bottom lane build, so take a look at the screen one more time. If you haven't tried that Caitlyn build, by the way, hop into a normal game and give it a try. It's actually a ton of fun, win or lose. We finished our Korean builds for patch 11.17, and I really hope you guys enjoyed them. Do you have a favorite, or did we miss one? Let us know in the comments below, and also check out the description for a link to join our Discord. We'd love to have you join our community. Until next time, stay safe, stay healthy, and have a wonderful day. Peace.